Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, looking urgently for a story that I had in the stack from yesterday. I've got it. I want to be sure we get to this story today, so I'm going to put it right at the top of that particular stack. Now, yesterday, what we saw with Rand Paul was an example of representation at its finest. Now, this is how you do a filibuster. What Rand Paul did yesterday, that is how you do a filibuster. We shouldn't have this Mickey Mouse stuff where somebody can just raise his hand and say, I want a filibuster, and then it takes 60 votes to close debate. There's no debate going on whatsoever. It's a pro forma filibuster, and I believe completely that we ought to have unlimited debate. You know, I believe that in a representative body, a deliberative body like the Senate is supposed to be, this is supposed to be the greatest deliberative body in the world, fine, then let them deliberate. If somebody has got a complaint or they've got a position on an issue, then let them make their case. Let them take as long as they want to make their case. You got 100 senators, so you could have a lengthy debate, but that's the whole point of having a deliberative body. Let them debate. Let's have unlimited debate. But then at some point, I believe you need to close the debate, and I think you ought to have a mechanism by which you can close the debate if it becomes evident that people are just stalling for time. They really don't have another point to make. They don't have an argument to make. They don't have anything else to contribute to the discussion or to the debate. They're just trying to stall a vote. Well, then you need to have a way to be able to bring that to a close. I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with 60 votes being the threshold to terminate debate, but only after everybody. And see, that's a protection. If it takes 60 votes, it's usually going to take people from both sides of the aisle to get that done, and that will keep one party from simply terminating or ending debate before it even starts. So I think you need unlimited debate, but I do think you need a means to close debate, and I think the threshold ought to be very high, and I think 60 votes is just fine. Now, what's happened? This filibuster that Rand Paul engaged in yesterday, it worked. It worked. Senator McConnell is out there saying today it's going to take 60 votes to bring closure on John Brennan till we get to the vote. We're going to have 60 votes to end the filibuster. Well, there's no filibuster because Rand Paul's done talking. So it's this Mickey Mouse filibuster. But nevertheless, Mitch McConnell was not saying that. He was not saying that before Rand Paul got up and did his filibuster thing on the floor of the Senate. He went for 12 hours and 52 minutes. I want to play some sound bites from the filibuster. Rand Paul had some company up there, guys that were emboldened by his stand and stepped up and stepped to his side. This is terrific. This is great news because he started out all by himself. Remember, he said, look, if there were more people with courage in this body, I wouldn't be the only one standing up here. Well, by the time he was done, let me just give you the list of the people that wound up stepping up to the plate and participating in the filibuster with him. Let's get to the list of nobles. You had Ted Cruz. We're going to hear from him in a minute. You had Marco Rubio. You had Mike Lee from Utah. That guy's a total stud when it comes to the conservative agenda. I think he got 100% from the Club for Growth, just like Ted Cruz is going to do, and I think Marco Rubio got 100% from the Club for Growth. You have Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania participated in the filibuster. John Thune from South Dakota. John Barrasso from Wyoming. Tim Scott from South Carolina. John Cornyn from Texas. Jerry Moran from Kansas. Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Jeff Flake from Arizona. Mitch McConnell weighed in at the end, and Saxby Chambliss from Georgia. And the thing I want you to observe is how many of these are young senators. What I mean by young, I mean new to the Senate. You know, Rand Paul is in his first term. Ted Cruz is in his first term. Marco Rubio is in his first term. Mike Lee is in his first term. Pat Toomey is back. He's been there before. Tim Scott is in his first term. Jerry Moran, I believe, is in his first term as a senator. Ron Johnson is in his first term from Wisconsin, even though he's a seasoned businessman. Jeff Flake is in his first term from Arizona. So my point is, ladies and gentlemen, this is good news. We've got some young bucks up there. We've got some young blood. We've got some young guns that are willing to step up, make their voice heard, and represent our values. This is terrific news. Be encouraged by this. Be encouraged. You know, the hashtag stand with Rand, or I stand with Rand. I forget exactly what the hashtag was, but this was a hashtag on Twitter, and it was the leading most trendingest. They've got this thing on Twitter where the hashtag that gets the most posts is considered to be trending, and one of those hashtags is going to have more posts to it than any other hashtag. And for a while, the hashtag Stand With Rand was the number one trending topic on Twitter in the entire world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a winnable war moment. We do have people up on Capitol Hill who will stand for the Constitution, who will stand for our values. They won't flinch. They'll talk for 12 hours and 52 minutes if they need to in order to represent and defend our values. And this was all about the Constitution. What Rand Paul did, this had nothing to do with John Brennan. This was all about the Constitution. It was all about limited government. It was all about the security of the American citizens to be protected from an arbitrary exercise of power by their own central government. Now, here's what Rand Paul, this is clip one, Rob. This is Rand Paul explaining what this filibuster is all about from his standpoint.
This is not about partisanship. I have allowed the president to pick his political appointees, but I will not sit quietly and let him shred the Constitution. I cannot sit at my desk quietly and let the president say that he will kill Americans on American soil who are not actively attacking a country.
So that's Rand Paul. I said, look, this is about the Constitution. That's what this whole thing is about. I don't dislike John Brennan as a person, but this is about the policy of this administration. I haven't heard yet, he said, the president say that he will not kill Americans on American soil who are not actively engaged in attacking our country. And he says, I want some kind of assurance that he won't do that, and he just couldn't get it. Now, Marco Rubio jumped up. This is clip number 2. Marco Rubio entered the fray, and he made a good point here. You know, you've got this business with drones. You know, and Jeff, tell me the point. You were making this point to me when we were getting ready for the program about this hypocrisy from the left when it comes to waterboarding and drones.
Oh, was that the one where I was talking about that's ironic or a little uncomfortable for the Nobel Peace Prize winner to now be hesitating so much on the use of drones in America?
Yeah, you know, Jeff was making the point, look, this guy, Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize, Mr. Peace, Mr. Gandhi. And now he's in hot water. Well, he's on the hot seat because he won't promise he's not going to use drones on American citizens. That's Mr. Nobel Peace Prize. And so you've got these liberals that they are completely anathema when it comes to waterboarding. That's got to be banned. That's torture. Can't have that. Drop a drone on you, that's fine. We got no problem dropping a drone on you and civilians in the neighborhood. And again, as I've explained, I got no problem with out on the field of battle. If they put children in harm's way, they know we're coming for them, and they put children in harm's way. We don't take any delight in that. We don't take any pleasure in that. But the moral culpability of putting those children at risk rests with them. They know we're coming after them. If they're going to deliberately expose innocent civilians to that kind of danger, then the moral culpability, the guilt for that rests on them. But here you've got liberals. They think waterboarding is torture. Well, you know, they get up and walk away from waterboarding. They live to breathe another day. Drones, you don't walk away from a drone attack, and they want to protect that, but they want to get rid of waterboarding. And Rubio said, look, you know, the left just was apoplectic over George Bush and waterboarding. It's torture, but they apparently are completely blasé when Barack Obama won't commit to not using drones to bomb American citizens on American soil into oblivion. And so he asked this question in part of the filibuster last night.
I want you to imagine what this conversation would be like tonight if the president was George W. Bush. And if this issue was about George W. Bush. Just imagine that for a moment now. If he had been asked this direct question and had refused to answer, what this chamber would look like tonight, what the arguments being made would be like tonight. Just imagine that for a moment. That takes me back to another modern-day poet by the name of Jay-Z. In one of his songs he wrote, "It's funny what 7 days can change. It was all good just a week ago." Well, I don't know if it was all good a week ago, but I can tell you that things have really changed. Because if the president was George W. Bush and this was a question being asked of him and his response was the silence we've gotten, we'd have a very different scenario here tonight, except that I actually believe the senator from Kentucky would be on the floor making the exact same arguments he's making.
And that's the point that Marco Rubio is saying, look, this is for us, this is not even about political party. This is not about being Republican. This is not about being Democrat. This is about being an American and believing in the limitations that the Constitution draws around the federal government. That's what this is all about, and I believe he's right. I believe that Rand Paul would have taken on George Bush if George Bush wouldn't tell the American, and George Bush would have, he would have said, absolutely not. There's no way we're going to use drones on American citizens on American soil. We're not going to do it. I mean, George Bush wouldn't hesitate. His attorney general wouldn't hesitate. But if George Bush was saying the same thing that Barack Obama was, I have no hesitation in believing that Rand Paul would be on the floor saying exactly the same thing about President Bush. You know, and genuine conservatives, I mean, I've been very critical of George Bush for any number of things because conservatives are driven by principle. And I've been over the stuff that I've had differences with George Bush on, and because conservatives are driven by principle, and we don't care who lines up with principle. We'll support them if they line up with us on that particular point. We'll work with them. We'll collaborate with them. And even if they're on our team, they wear our jersey, but they're on the wrong side of an issue, then we aren't going to hesitate to call them out on that. So we're going to take some calls in the next segment. I got some more filibuster sound bites to play for you, and we'll also play the exchange. I believe we may get to that. We may not get to that the next hour, but Ted Cruz, his exchange with Eric Holder over this whole drone business. And we want to take your phone calls. So if you've got an opinion on Rand Paul's filibuster, I've got John McCain, cranky John McCain, got out of it. Well, never mind. Cranky John McCain got on the floor this morning and he trashed Rand Paul, told him to calm down. He says if Mr. Paul wants to be taken seriously, he needs to do more than pull political stunts to fire up libertarians. Back with your calls. Stay with us.